Good evening, everyone. My name is Sharita Singleton, and I am the VP Education for Silver Tongues Toastmasters Club and District 38 D40 Area Director. We're excited to welcome all of you and our distinguished dignitaries and guests joining us this evening. On behalf of the Silver Tongues Toastmasters Club, under the leadership of our president, Lisa Johnson, we are thrilled to welcome you to our Part 3 Educational Evaluation Series, The Gift of an Evaluation. As Toastmasters, evaluations is the heart of what we do. It's how we learn, grow, refine our skills, and uplift one another as communicators and leaders. As our late founder, the late Ralph Smetley, once said, we learn best in moments of enjoyment. We hope you came ready to take notes, engage, and get the most of this powerful and interactive workshop. Now, I would like to share a few words with you about our esteemed presenter this evening. Rhonda Young is an IT consultant for a digital transformation company, focusing on clients undergoing a merger or acquisition. She holds an MBA in strategic management and a BBA in accounting, both from Temple University, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Rhonda is a distinguished Toastmaster and pursuing another DTM award under the Pathways program. She is the immediate past district director. Rhonda has been a Toastmaster Gavel Club mentor at a New Jersey Juvenile Detention Center, mentor for the National Black MBA Association, Philadelphia chapter Leaders of Tomorrow's program, and mentor to new Toastmasters and clubs. Rhonda is passionate about leading, mentoring, and enabling others' success. Please help me at this time to give Rhonda a warm welcome as our presenter for tonight's workshop. Rhonda Young.
Thank you, Sharita. Thanks, everyone. And happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. I hope this week has been productive, personally and professionally, for each of you. I am excited to be here during our finale of this series. And I do want to thank Sharita and Vicki Goins for inviting me to be a facilitator, and for Lisa to sponsor this on behalf of Silver Tongues Toastmasters Club. So thank you all very much. And of course, to our wonderful attendees tonight, this would not be a session without each of you. So thank you very much. As I mentioned, we are approaching the finale of this session. Let me hide these controls. Give me 1 second. Okay. And by way of review, I do want to remind you this is session 3. We will focus on delivering an effective evaluation. I do want to have a brief recap of sessions 1 and 2, and that will be the first thing that we do today. We'll next have a discussion. I'd like to hear about any of your recent experiences, either as a formal evaluator or just sitting back in an audience evaluating someone's speech informally. I'm curious as to know whether you've been able to implement some of the things that we've talked about. So we will definitely talk about that. And then finally, we'll go to the structure of oral evaluation. Actually, I have samples. I shouldn't say structure, but these are sample oral evaluations that we can leverage as a springboard until you continue to develop your method, approach, and formula for delivering the oral evaluation. And let me not be remiss in stating that there is also power in providing a written evaluation. Oftentimes, we are so focused on the oral evaluation that we don't give a written evaluation. And that's a little bit of a disservice to the speaker because the written evaluation provides a referenceable document that they can go back to. They may forget about what you said during the meeting, during your oral evaluation. They may pick up little nuggets here and there, but the written will give them something to go back to, something concrete. So please, if at all possible, don't forego the written evaluation. And Davida, I saw your hand go up. Do you have a question or comment?
No, I'm gonna wait for the Q&A session. I'd love to share that with you. I feel you on your allergies right now because my allergies have been winning all week. So
Thank you. I think it's a cold, actually.
is it?
Yeah.
I can't wait to share the tips that I took away from these first two. It was very instrumental as a club president.
Oh,
I now think this 3-set series should be a requirement. So I can't wait.
I can't wait to hear. I can't wait to hear. You have me with bated breath. So let's just dive in and go through the session 1 and 2 recap. So session 1 recap, and please, 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 as Sharita mentioned, this is an interactive session. And the fact that we are an intimate crowd live here on the Zoom means that we can interact even more with one another. And please, at anytime, feel free to stop me and make your comments. So the session recap of session 1 included the benefits of an evaluation, types of communication, speech organization, purpose, and title, the use of references, word choice, grammatical devices, and vocal variety, as well as visual aids and humor. And these are not all encompassing. These are the things that we talked about that are kind of the low-hanging fruit. These are the common elements of building an effective speech that allows you to evaluate it and evaluate the effectiveness. And we dove a little bit deeper into, again, who benefits. And I'll go through these quickly because you saw these before, or I believe if we don't have the video available, we will have the slides, make sure they are available to each of you. So who benefits from the evaluations? Well, of course, the speaker, because it gives that speaker immediate feedback. The evaluator benefits because they are exercising skills, being able to listen, synthesize, and then present the evaluation in a constructive and positive manner. And also the audience gets to learn by observation, by seeing the speaker, receiving the information, hearing and seeing the evaluator. And there may be some overlap in what you saw that the person did well or may have an area of opportunity for improvement. But there may be other things that you as the audience members may have seen that the evaluator did not mention. And just keep in mind, the evaluator has 2 to 3 minutes, or if you're like me, 3 to 4 minutes sometimes. And that's a very compressed amount of time to get in a lot of information. And what I keep telling myself in order to respect everyone's time is to just hit people with the highlights, right? You don't have to go into excruciating detail. You don't have to cover every note that you've taken comprehensively. Put that in the written evaluation, but just highlight the things that may be valuable time-wise for the speaker, as well as for the audience members. And this is where growth happens. There's growth all through the Toastmasters meeting, but in my opinion, especially when you get to the evaluation, the feedback portion, because you've done your best and now you're getting to see if your message intent was received in the way you prepared it. There's also the uncovering of blind spots, those things that we do, some mannerisms, manner of speaking, or the entire presentation, your preparation for it, that you may not be aware of, and this is where it's sometimes revealed to us. We talked about speech elements to consider. Again, we went over this list, and in context of today's session, I want you to take all of this information cumulatively. I want you to, when we get to the model speaker, who is Barbara Snyderman, I want you to consider her organization, the title, purpose, research, references, grammatical devices, all of the things that we've talked about, body language, word choice, vocal variety, movement, gestures. All of these elements are on the table for you to evaluate your speakers by. Not every speech will have humor. Every speech may not have a certain amount of gestures, but those are things that you can think about. Would that enhance the speech? And if so, maybe that's the recommendation for the speaker. If it's movement, which is a little difficult on Zoom, not impossible, but if you were in person, are people using the speaking area effectively? Are you connecting with the audience, etc.? Session 2 recap, we talked about various approaches to evaluations and some evaluation don'ts and do's. So we talked about the sandwich method, which you will hear ad nauseum within Toastmasters, but I think it's very useful. It's a very common way, even outside of Toastmasters, to provide feedback to people. And that's where you have the positive first. You lead with the good stuff, right? Because you want the person to be receptive of what you're saying. Then you add in a small layer of constructive feedback, and then you end on a high note with positive feedback. The next method we talked about was the see, hear, feel method. And that's just your observation of what people do as they are giving the speech, delivering the speech, right? Did you see confidence? Did you see movement? Did you see gestures? What did you hear? Was it vocal variety? Did they use personas or personification? Did they sing? Did they emote? And then what did you feel? How did it make you feel? Was it something that was inspirational, motivational? Did you learn something? Was it a demonstrative or demonstration speech? Was it something that was very humorous? And then we talked about the 4 C's, and that was something I came up with. And this is the construct, content, conclusion, or call to action, as well as the character. I will admit that 4 C's is very aggressive in a 2 to 3 minute evaluation. So I probably should have named this the 3 C's, something a little smaller, but you get the point. Select those C's that are pertinent to the speech evaluation and give that amount of detail. Don't feel like you have to use all 4 of the C's. So we just went through this. Are there any questions on the sandwich method?
I have a question.
Yes, Lisa, please.
The C fill here, the 4 C's. And
Yes,
C was character.
yes.
What do you mean by the character?
And the character is really like the manner of the person. So their gestures, the use of speaking area, were they confident, were they humorous? Sometimes people literally get into character. Some people actually have visual aids that they will use, or if they're talking about someone being a superhero, they'll have a cape on and just different things like that. So did they have the visuals that help to punctuate their speech or parts of their speech? So the character is the person. And you'll often hear in Toastmasters that we are to evaluate the speech, not the person. Excuse me. I agree with that to an extent, right? Of course, if there are aspects of the person that were tailored to support the speech, as I mentioned, if they literally wore apparel or donned other things that help to get their point across, that is fair game. Now, we don't criticize or evaluate the person for their immutable attributes like skin color, hair color, their height, weight, those types of things. They are off of the table. But if they are getting into a character to help convey their speech, that to me is fair game. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Okay, awesome.
thank you.
So, yeah, so these are some things that I felt were helpful for me in developing my skill at giving and evaluation. So I wanted to pass on to you, and you may come up with your own. And of course, nothing that I'm talking about today or in the past sessions are de facto. These are just suggestions to help you to develop more effective evaluations for yourself, for the speaker, as well as for the audience members. So we talked about some of the don'ts that I just mentioned, like don't talk about personal characteristics that are unrelated to the speech. Don't reiterate the speech. And I know you've seen this or you may have done this. I know I have. I'll say, Paula, thank you so much for giving this speech. You talked about going to Paris and then you went to the Eiffel Tower and you went to the Champs-Élysées and you saw the Mona Lisa. Like I'm re-giving her speech, and that's not the point of this. Your job as an evaluator is to help illuminate the very effective manners, processes, and approaches to delivering the speech, and to give suggestions where the speaker could be more effective in delivering that speech or connecting with the audience or whatever element you can come up with. But it's definitely not to reiterate the speech. Don't make the evaluation about yourself. I think it's great if you can personalize it. If you see common interests, I could say, Paula, when I went to Paris, I absolutely enjoyed visiting the Eiffel Tower too. It was very nostalgic for me. So that's why I connected with your speech. It's okay to personalize it, but don't go too deep into your own experiences that you're almost delivering a new speech and not evaluating the person. And don't criticize points of view that you disagree with, which may be difficult, but this is an exercise in not looking at the content itself per se, but how it was delivered. Was it delivered effectively? And don't evaluate too harshly. You don't want to discourage people from speaking again. And especially if you have new Toastmasters in the audience, as well as visitors, you do not want to make them hesitant about joining or reticent about getting up to speak because they think they'll get a very harsh evaluation. I've seen this done and I've done it myself. I will preface an evaluation that may be perceived as harsh or hard by saying, Barbara is an experienced Toastmaster. I know she wants, salient or very truthful feedback. She can handle the harshness that may appear because she's looking to get better. So whatever the words that you like to use, you can always preface that so that other people know this may not be the norm. Avoid the phrases like you should, it would be better. There's generally no right or wrong answers. There's just different degrees of effectiveness, different degrees of delivering a speech that's more connected or delivered in a way that's more cohesive. So don't bash people by saying you should have done or I wish you had. Give them the suggestion and then also tell them how it could benefit them as well as the audience. And then finally, don't vocalize the feedback. All of your feedback, if you need to share things in writing, please do that. And then some evaluation do's. Do become familiar with the project before the meeting. Discuss with the speaker maybe areas that they want you to pay a little bit more attention to. Maybe there's a new skill such as gestures or using the speaking area more, or striving to use no notes that they want you to be cognizant of so that you can evaluate that. That's always helpful. Lead with love, respect, and encouragement. And the 3-to-1 ratio for feedback, 3 positives, and then you get to say 1 constructive. That's a loose guide, right? But the point here is not to be overly weighted on the constructive feedback, that the positive feedback seems to be parenthetical. So we want to lead with the positive, more heavily weighted on what they're doing well, because we want that encouragement. But if you need to slide in a constructive or 2, feel free to do so. Ensure your feedback is helpful and actionable. It's not enough just to give a blank statement. You need to connect with your audience more. You need to add more humor. Give them some reasons why, and maybe even suggestions how. Personalize your evaluation with I statements. Evaluations are highly subjective, highly subjective. So you want to say, I felt, I thought, I heard, as opposed to the audience members. Unless you're bringing them in and asking for their feedback with a question, make it about how you receive the speaker's information. And then, as we mentioned, offer suggestions and examples. So this is just a restatement of our session 3 agenda. So before we go into that, let's do the discussion, and I'm going to stop sharing so I can see everybody's face. So let's talk about, in the several weeks since session 1 and 2, have you been able to implement anything that we've talked about, or have you had any new revelations with regard to evaluations? Anyone? I know, Davida, you had some feedback that you wanted to share with us.
Yes, being less than a year old in this in the chapter that we are part of, this was an eye-opener to remove ourselves and remember we're evaluating the speech and not making it personal, not customizing it, not satisfying you, really just doing what you can to uplift the person who delivered the speech. So the over criticizing, the not reiterating the speech, all that was so crucial. And I was excited because I was able to take back some of your tips. And I just, as I started in the beginning, I just think it was key to understand the importance of the evaluation, because it's for you as well as the speaker. And you had me in hello with the from the first session to the second session, and it was better walking through that. And as we had about 30 guests, and we had 4 speakers that day, and it was like to just provide a few of those tips to take them back. It was very helpful, and it helped people remove themselves and really focus on the speech that was delivered. So I appreciate that feedback. It was really a chance to focus on what was actually being spoken about and not think about, actually be in the moment. So thank you for that. Thank you for those tips.
Awesome.
I still think it is great that people, I still think it should be a requirement now. I don't know if you want to throw it in officers training, something. It's just as important as an icebreaker, this evaluation series. I do think it's very valuable, so I appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, I think Vicky and Sharita, this was their brainchild, because they know that there's always a need to recalibrate the evaluation. Sometimes we get really relaxed and we become so comfortable with people in our clubs, and we just need that boost to remind us of the fact that giving the evaluation is truly a gift to people. I know I I like hearing the good stuff, but I am very, very focused on what I can do better as a speaker. That's just my personality.
I also thought what was key about it helped monitor the tone too, because we need to be excited when we're delivering an evaluation instead of just sounding like a robot.
Yes,
So that tone really matters. That mood matters, tone matters, because the person on the receiving end is just sitting there watching everything in your body language. They're watching everything. And I'm like, no, she didn't say that. Yes. But if you say it with such elegance and deliver it in a respectful manner, it'll be received.
yes. And this helps us even at work. I know when I have to deliver performance evaluations or interim evaluations, or when I'm talking to the people that report to me and I need to give feedback, it really helps me. It helps me to present it in a way that they feel good about the contribution that they're making, even if I'm telling them there's some developmental things that you need to do. I think they receive that with more enthusiasm because they ultimately can connect their performance to the company's performance or their performance to our client's performance. Anyone else? Joyce, please. And and again, we have an intimate crowd here, so please just come off mute and dive in.
Well, some of us have been in Toastmasters a long time, but something like this is always good to have as a refresher, as a reminder of things. And you pick up new tips as you go along, or even the reminders are helpful.
I agree. I mean, I had fun like pulling this curriculum together, and I can't be someone that espouses this, like, do as I say, not as I do. No, I need to take my own advice. So as much as I'm sharing with you all, I feel like I'm learning and growing right alongside each and every one of you. And you're right, Joyce. There's even from someone as new as Davita, like a year in, I, I'm sure there's things that I can learn from her and your club members because you're coming in with fresh eyes. We have been institutionalized by Toastmasters, right? We understand what it's all about. We know what it's all about. We've been doing it for so many years, and that can get kind of stale. So we need to have new lifeblood, a new B12 shot. To
One thing we
get us
do
re-energized.
One
Go ahead,
thing we
Joyce.
do, if we have a guest Toastmaster in our club meeting, we'll often ask them to be an evaluator. Because, as you say, with our own clubs, we get comfortable with each other, we get used to each other. Having a guest come in and give comments gives us a fresh perspective.
Yes. Has anyone used any of these methods in giving an evaluation, whether it was the sandwich method, whether it was the see, hear, feel method, or those 4 C's, any combination of those? Anyone use those? And if anyone want to share their experience?
I think the sandwich method is the most common.
Mhm.
And that's why it's interesting to have the other options, the feel, see, hear, and the 4 C's.
Yeah.
Again, giving us a different way of looking at a presentation and evaluation.
Yes. Anyone else? Paula?
I've taken your 4 C's and combined it with the form that Toastmasters gives us and use those 4 C's for the areas where you're doing well, areas where you can improve, and areas to challenge yourself. But taking those 4 C's and breaking it down into where they can improve and where they are good. So yes, it helps to give a more robust evaluation, I believe. Please don't forget the written ones,
Yes.
because when you're speaking, even if you have your notes, you often forget because of the nerves.
Mhm.
But when you break it down on a written evaluation afterwards, I think it's just so much it reinforces what you're relaying much better.
So Paula, I knew you used the 4 Cs. I know we've talked about that before. Now, like me, did you feel like you were coming up against time, like going through those four?
I used every one of those 3 minutes and 30 seconds. But yes,
Good. Yeah, so I think if nothing else, it gives you a lens by which to evaluate, but you don't have to say it all in your 2 to 3 minute evaluation. Again, I'm saying this to myself until it gets drilled in. And Barbara keep me honest. Barbara's my club president, so she'll keep me honest and say, Rhonda, remember when you said you wouldn't go over? And I am a prescribed DTM, don't time me. That's my get out of timing jail card. So if there's no other comments about,
I had a, I had a quick
Uh,
question,
please.
Rhonda. So we did have an experience where there was an evaluation and you'd have thought they were giving a full dissertation. We were like, oh my gosh, and out of respect, you'd never want to cut somebody off, but the time was clearly read and respect is respect, so you let somebody have the floor and finish. But I wanted to call and in our chapter, it's our sorors. I wanted to call like, girl, that evaluation was too long. You put too much of you into it, right? But I'm hoping that won't ever happen again. But I did want to address that part that they went way. I mean, they used the sheet and went every single way instead of making it more organic and making it flow. So I
Yeah.
agree not to use that sheet.
Yeah, and it's okay to use it, but just we have to keep in mind we don't have to say everything. Write write until your heart is content. Write a novel, write an article, write a dissertation, but do not speak that all because there's a cascade impact for your meeting. And maybe that's what and I think about that too. And I have to get better. But when people understand that when they go long, that means other aspects of the meeting may go short if you are compressed for time. My club meets at a library at 8:45. The custodian person is coming around, kicking us out, right? We get a warning at 8:30, and then 8:45, we have to be out of there. And it's not fair to other functionaries that come after you if you've encroached on their time. It just isn't fair. So that's why we try to plan the meeting down to the minute so that we can get everything that we've planned to do during the meeting. We can get that realized during the meeting instead of rushing through some parts of it. So if there's no other feedback, Lisa, I answered your question. I think that's why you had your hand raised. Yeah, well, we will share the slides. And Sharita, keep me honest. I believe we shared the slides from the first 2 sessions.
You're
You're
muted, Sharita.
Sorry, no, they have not gone out.
okay.
I do apologize. for that.
Okay. Well, I suspect we'll send them all out at the same time then.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed the first few sessions, but I really would like to at least get the summary of those methods that you listed on your slides.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Let me go back to sharing. And what I like to do now is just share a few, and I don't have this as a formula. I just have it as sample ways of evaluating. And here's some different approaches, and please stop me if you've done this and you have a comment or you think it's a little off base, right? So this is the proverbial greeting. And I know we were talking about this a little bit earlier. Like, good day, fellow Toastmasters guests, and especially Christine. This is assuming Christine was the speaker. All right. How many of you start that way? Yeah. Yeah. It's customary. It just is. And then maybe you start with a positive opening, such as, I've really enjoyed, and then you go into a specific aspect of the speech, such as your introduction, your organization, your whatever aspect, whatever the strength was that was good. let's say it's speech organization, was made it very easy to follow along, right? So this is almost building up that sandwich method. Constructive feedback. I noticed that and then you look for that. I usually try to look for the element of their speech that could add the most impact, the most value, right? They may have a long list, especially if it's a new speaker, a long list of things. We don't want to do that. Just pick one that has the most impact, right? So I noticed that you spoke a little quickly. I suggest that you try to speak slower, time yourself. You can tell them to record yourself, or even use a metronome to help you pace yourself. And I got the idea of a metronome when I went and I had a few sessions with a vocal coach. And not that I'm a singer, it wasn't that at all, it was for speaking. I wanted to ensure that I spoke at a pace that was easily understood, that wasn't too quick, but not too slow. And she suggested that I get a metronome, and that helps you to keep a good pace. I mean, sometimes you may have to get that technical. I know that's probably a little unusual, but believe me, I think for paid professional speakers, there's a lot of methods, a myriad of methods that are used to help people with their effectiveness, with their presence, with their poise as speakers. And then end with a positive closing. So overall, I think you did a superb job, right? Remember, in my club, and as I challenge other clubs that I visit, we try not to use the word great, because great is overused and has little meaning. So you did a superb job. That's better than saying you did a great job. So use those adjectives. And I do have a list of 100, I think, 101 alternatives to the word great. I'm happy to share that out with you all. And this comes from George Phillip from the Princeton Toastmasters Club. So that was his challenge to his club, and one that I took up personally. So you can say, I think you did a superb job. I'm confident that with a little more practice, you'll be an even better speaker. We always want to end on that high note. So this sounds pretty standard, right? Pretty easy breezy. This is probably how you're doing how you're performing your evaluations. So with the next one, we want to spruce it up a little bit. So this one here, and I'll say this is my cheat if I've had to evaluate a difficult speech. How many of you have had a difficult speech to evaluate? Maybe a speech you didn't connect with, or you felt like the speaker may not have prepared as much as he or she should have or could have, or the delivery just could use some work, some polish. So what I do to buy time, now you're talking to me, don't time me, somebody who talks too much during an evaluation. Now I'm looking for things to say because it's going to be difficult to stay positive and honest. Right. So what I'll sometimes do, I don't do this all of the time, but sometimes I will turn to the evaluation form. I'll say, Toastmasters and guests, the purpose of Kat's speech tonight was to, and I'll pull the purpose statements. Each evaluation has purpose statements, and that this is not a bad thing to do as a standard approach, because sometimes people don't read the agendas, or it's not written on the agenda, the purpose of the person's speech. This will help them understand the lens by which you're evaluating the speech. What are the skills that are being developed or exercised or demonstrated? So you can give that information. It buys time, but it also sets the stage for your evaluation, what's to come after that. And then I could say, Kat, you certainly achieved the purpose of this speech, right? Obviously, if that's true. Going on to the positive opening, a core skill of the speech was to use humor. And you were able to demonstrate this skill by telling self-deprecating jokes, which were effectively delivered as I observed the audience's chuckles, right? So there's a lot of information you can give in that one run-on sentence. Don't use run-on sentences though, keep them short and sweet. But this gives a lot of good information, useful information to the speaker that, number one, in this case, Kat was able to use humor, which was a core skill that's being demonstrated with the speech, that I'm showing that I'm listening because I heard those self-deprecating jokes. Number three, I'm also observing the audience reaction because they are chuckling. So there's a lot of things that you can say there. And then as far as constructive feedback, when you told the joke, you began speaking while the audience was still laughing. This is something that people always do, unless you're a trained comedian, which I have taken a stand-up comedy class, so I learned about this. Don't step on your punchline, right? Pause for audience reaction. Give them a few seconds to digest and react to the humor. Pause for a few seconds, let the laughter die down before you proceed again. That may be a part of the constructive feedback. And then the positive closing would be, you delivered an amazing speech. Again, not a great speech, but amazing. With minor tweaks, I'm sure you could win the World Championship of Public Speaking, right? So think about saying something to that effect. Any comments, questions, anything to add? No? Okay.
I don't know if I would feel comfortable if the person really didn't give a great speech, if I would feel comfortable saying that type of positive closing at the end, like just with some minor tweaks, you could be the world championship.
This is a little hyperbole, but this is also just by example of what you can say. I'm not suggesting that you whitewash it. I think you should be honest to a point, but pull out, and this may be an exercise in pulling out the good, seeing the good in people, right? We're not all good, we're not all bad. So seeing the good and giving some type of inspiration to continue speaking. I often say, I look forward to taking this journey with you as you develop into the best speaker you can be. Or something to that effect. I'm happy to have a front row seat as you develop your speaking skills. So whatever you think is genuine and earnest to yourself that you can say to someone, I think you should use that, but should always end on a high note.
Rhonda, I have been in Toastmasters for 12 years now, and only once have I felt it necessary to call out a speaker when they didn't achieve the purpose of their speech. I think it's important to briefly recap that. You don't have to read it word for word, but the purpose of Barbara's speech was, and just one sentence, but when somebody is totally off, and this was an upper level speech, it wasn't like an icebreaker or of level 1, even early level 2. I just felt it was very necessary to call that out. And I think it's the only time, and I've given many, many evaluations, the person still got credit for the speech, which I objected to, not publicly. I don't think that somebody who does not meet the criteria for the speech should get credit for it, but we don't have any recourse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a good feeling, but speakers, if they're doing projects, need to know if they've even come close or they've totally been in left field and just talked to talk and not really do the project. I don't know if I'm making sense or if that goes against everything you've tried to teach everybody.
Excuse me. No, Barbara, that's a great point, actually. And let's face it, sometimes people try to retrofit a speech they have already crafted to fit a project that they need to complete. And sometimes it doesn't align. It misses the mark. It doesn't focus on that particular skill. And when that happens, the way I look at it is that the speaker is just shortchanging him or herself, because they're getting credit for a speech that they had not intended to fulfill that skill or requirement. So it's more on them than on us. And I think in that case, it's perfectly legit to call it out and maybe suggest another speech or another project that the speech would have fit better. And I've heard that done. I
Oh.
absolutely have. Instead of saying, you didn't make the mark, just say this speech would be better suited for X project, because you really focused on your gestures or visual aids or whatever the strength of the skill was, if that makes sense.
It does, but it's really hard now with pathways
It is.
because I as an individual can't look at your path to see what your other projects are unless even if I've gone through that path, I can't remember what was level 3. I can remember social speeches is always in level 3 or 4 somewhere. But other than that, it's difficult. And this may have been old time. I can't remember at what point. It may have been pre-pathways that this happened. I just don't remember, but I specifically remember this individual and having to call the person out. And one time I wanted to call, and it happened to be the same individual, call a person out for giving me an evaluation. I did an impromptu speech because we had no speakers. And the first thing out of the evaluator's mouth was, you should have prepared more for this speech. I'm giving an off-the-cuff speech.
Yes.
What does that mean? That means I'm talking off the cuff.
Yes.
And we really need to have time for feedback for evaluation sometimes.
I agree. I definitely agree.
But anyway.
I saw
I'll
Elaine's
quiet.
hand up. Elaine, did you have something to contribute?
I did, just as you recognize me, I'm getting a phone call and I'm trying to decline it. There we go. He's dead.
Okay.
I did
Okay.
have I had the same experience where a speaker went totally out to left field and didn't give a speech. He acted out a situation, and the situation was him grieving over something, and it just alarmed the whole club. You know, we were meeting in person. We were actually at a restaurant, and thank God we were in an area that was off from everybody else. And during my evaluation of him, I just had to tell him, you missed your calling, because you really caught everybody's attention when you did your act. But we lost a lot of that interpretation because there was no speech involved.
Right.
And he took all of that into consideration, but rather than moan and groan and beat him with a wet noodle, tried to make him feel better, because it took a lot of guts to go through the acting that he did. And I think one of the ways that the club had failed him was they encouraged people to go to an impromptu comedy club. And that's what he got out of it.
The improv.
So I felt that we failed him. Yeah, improv.
Yes.
We failed him because we encouraged people to go, and then he went, and that's what he got out of it. And he came back and he brought that back to the club, and it was actually a disaster.
Yeah.
So I had to make him feel good about it.
Yeah, and once again, I think we can always put a positive spin on it. To your point, Elaine, saying you missed your calling. Like, you really did a great job at improv, but here at Toastmasters, we give speeches and they're prepared and they're, heavy on content, and it's less on theatrics. So just to help ground him in what's needed. And maybe that's also a conversation with his mentor, if he has one, another conversation with the VPE, or maybe even VPM, right? VP Education, VP Membership, to help him understand this is what is expected of the Toastmasters projects, not the improv. Improv is okay. It's if you take bits and pieces here and there, I think it's nice to add that humor, but a whole improv set for a speech is not necessarily what's included in the Pathways learning program.
What we did after a couple more speeches that he gave, which had nothing to do with improv, we gave him a standing ovation
Yes.
at his next. I think it was like two or three more speeches after that disaster. We gave him a standing ovation, which really built up his confidence.
I love that. And to me, it seems like this gentleman is willing to learn, willing to try new and different things. And I think that's the perfect person to be a Toastmaster, right? To have that moxie and have that grit to go out and do something new. And I think with the guardrails that the club puts up, like I said, whether it's the mentor, or VPE, VPM, or the entire club membership, you're giving him that positive feedback on the things that he did well, which is that corrective action. He shifted away from that improv and focused on delivering a true speech. So kudos to you all too for supporting him. Any other comments? No.
I was
Go ahead,
was just
Paula.
going to say, like Barbara, I once evaluated a speech where the person totally missed the topic, totally missed it. And what I did is I evaluated her on that speech, very much similar to the 4 C's, but I also said it was a great speech. Well, great when we were able to say great back then, but you missed the whole objective of the project, and you may want to revisit it.
Yes.
And left it at that, but just evaluated her on the speech that she gave.
Mhm.
And the quality of that speech.
Yeah, Paula, that's a great suggestion too. And I love the recycling back, saying you may want to revisit this project, because they're foregoing the opportunity to get evaluated on something they purposefully and deliberately tried to achieve. And as I mentioned, Toastmasters, people who want to rock it through and just get the DTM and to say, I got the DTM, or I'm on level 5, or I completed a path. It's a disservice when they're not taking it seriously, when they're just speaking week after week after week without the adequate amount of preparation. I don't know about you all, but for me to deliver a speech, I need at least 2 weeks to craft it, to rehearse it, to modify it, condense it, and just work on the delivery. I think we've all seen people that give speeches or want to give speeches week after week, and I always wonder, are they taking back the feedback that they get? Are they taking it to heart? Are they incorporating it? And oftentimes I don't see changed delivery, changed behavior. And once again, why are you here if you're not trying to get better, if you're not taking the trusted feedback from your club colleagues? Then you may just need a platform for people to hear you speak. So just a couple more evaluations, and then we'll go into our model speaker and we'll give her some feedback. So here's another way that you can start your evaluation. Do you want to play again? Jocelyn, your speech title caught my attention immediately. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, were you as intrigued by the speech title as I was? The purpose of this speech was to present a well-organized speech. I could easily identify the opening, body, and conclusion. You knocked it out of the park. The opening was engaging. You told a story about your triathlon experience, and you concluded with a lesson and a callback to the title, do you want to play again? As far as constructive feedback, to be more dynamic and engaging, consider using bigger gestures in the speaking area more deliberately. Using the speaking area to denote the scenes in your story, and bigger gestures will help us to visualize and experience your emotions. And to close on a positive note, since humor isn't my jam, I appreciated your speech even more. I think the humor was relatable and it helped me to remember your main points and your call to action. Any feedback on that type of approach? This one incorporates the person's speech title. And because, believe it or not, some people may not have a speech title or they don't put a lot of thought into it. Have you had people who gave a speech title that was like a gazillion words long? It's like, is that a speech title or a synopsis of the speech? Right? It should be thoughtful, it should be purposeful. I love double entendres, right? So when I hear a speech title, I'm thinking one thing and they take me into a totally different direction. And a lot of time that's purposefully done. I love that. So give that person kudos for having a speech title that whetted your appetite for the speech, right? That made you want to lean in and listen and learn. Once again, all of these kind of use that sandwich method of giving something positive. You can throw in your constructive anywhere in your evaluation. You don't have to just say positive, constructive, positive. It could be a series of positive and constructive, positive, constructive, but you want to make sure that you're still saying overall positive and that the person feels good about what they did and taking note. Just take a few notes of what they can do to be even more effective. And I personalized the ending by saying humor isn't my jam, right? So that's where you can throw yourself in there just a tad, but that it also shows your appreciation for a skill that the person possesses that maybe you don't have intrinsically. Any feedback, comments? Good there? Okay. Let's go on to number 4. So for number 4, kudos Lily on delivering your icebreaker with aplomb. I mean, that could be your attention grabbing intro. And remember, an evaluation is a speech. So just as we encourage other speakers to have an opening, body, and conclusion, the same holds true for an evaluation. Positive opening statement is, considering this was your first Toastmaster speech, you appear to be very confident and prepared. I enjoyed learning about your culture, food, family, and fun times in the Dominican Republic. When you spoke about your family, your voice was very endearing, and the love you have for your parents and siblings should say, well, the love you have was palpable. That was correct. Any comments on that so far? This is a little representative of that see, hear, feel method that we talked about. What I saw was her being very confident and prepared. I enjoyed learning about her culture. When you spoke about your family, I talked about her voice. So I heard that intonation of her voice. It was very endearing and loving toward her family. Constructive feedback could be, as you speak more often, strive to come from behind the lectern to remove the barrier between you and the audience. This may increase or help you to maintain audience engagement. Obviously, for an icebreaker, we don't want to be too plentiful with the constructive feedback because the sole purpose is for the newer Toastmaster or the Toastmaster given an icebreaker to introduce themselves to the club, talk about a subject they know best, which is themselves, or an aspect of themselves, like a hobby or some type of experience, and it's not to be too critical, but give them something to strive for, which I believe appears in every evaluation, like to challenge the speaker, strive to come from behind the lectern. And then in closing, Lily, you delivered an outstanding, not great, but outstanding icebreaker with confidence and authority. Continue to use advanced techniques such as vocal variety and gestures. Don't hesitate to let me know how I can support your growth and development as a speaker. So Lisa, that's also another way to close, right? If you feel that the person didn't deliver their very best, offer them help. Let me know how I can help you with your next speech, or let me know if you need a mentor, whatever the case may be. Questions, comments, additions, things you've done differently? Okay, I think I have one more. Wow, this is a long one. Yeah. Okay, so the intro, and I've done this one before. I'm the luckiest person at today's meeting. Toastmasters and guests, I have the honor of evaluating an amazing speech. Katie, thank you for making my job easy. I will focus on 3 aspects of your speech: construction, character, and conclusion. For the construction, Katie, it's apparent that you put a lot of effort into your speech. It was well organized. Your word choice was most appropriate for the audience's understanding. You immediately caught my attention with the opening. Consider restricting your main points to no more than 3 for the benefit of the audience's attention, and to adequately cover each point within the speech duration without rushing through it. So as you can see there, I gave her some positive feedback, but I also bolted that constructive feedback onto it by saying consider, right? It's not you should, I wish you had, no, but consider restricting the main points to 3. As far as the character, by walking in front of the lectern, I felt the speech was a more personal conversation. Your eye contact made us feel you were speaking individually to each audience member. Your hand gestures weren't erratic or distracting. You appeared to be relaxed. Be careful not to pace too much. Perhaps you should move and plant yourself until you're making another point, right? And this is where we see people who, it's almost like watching a tennis match where they just constantly pace back and forth. And while movement is helpful, it can also be distracting. So you want to give that feedback. And then a positive closing may be, I was impressed by your delivery of a topic some would deem boring. You kept the audience's attention with your anecdotes, your gestures, and your friendly tone. So that this is a play on the now 3 C's, whatever you can get in that short time period. The 4 C's may be a little super aggressive. Any comments, feedback? Is this helpful?
Yes, I'm looking forward to giving my next evaluation.
Good.
Getting there.
Awesome. At least it shouldn't be hurtful. If not helpful, it's not hurtful.
I don't know, Rhonda. Did you say my speech was boring? Is that what you said? That's all I
Not
got.
at all. Not at all. But I've heard people give speeches on topics that I would have never looked up myself. Or it could have seemed like it was a boring topic, but the person delivered it in such a way that it was exciting. And I was thankful that I was in the audience and heard the speech. So we want to applaud those types of things. Also, everybody's passion isn't ours. So when you find something that you may not have resonated with, it's nice to call it out, to say, like, you made me excited to learn about history or pre-colonial days or whatever the case may be. So now I'd like to turn our attention to our model speaker, Barbara Snyderman, DTM to the 2nd power, which means she has 2 DTMs, one under the traditional program and I believe one under Pathways. The title of Barbara's speech is Play Poker with Me. And what I like to do, I'll stop sharing so we can see Barbara fully. What I like to do is once we hear Barbara's speech, if I can get maybe 2 volunteers to deliver yeah, that is a beautiful picture, Barbara,
Thank you.
to deliver an evaluation on Barbara using whatever method that either resonates with you or if you wanted to challenge yourself. So we've talked about the sandwich method, which is traditional. We talked about the see, hear, and feel. We talked about any combination of the 4 C's, or you can compress it down to 3 C's, or you can strike out on your own to do something differently. So is that fair? I don't necessarily, I won't ask for volunteers right now, but please take notes and prepare as if you're going to give Barbara an evaluation. And let's see if we can see some differences in how we receive information from a speaker. If you pointed out the same things or if there were different aspects that you were able to glean. Is that fair?
And yeah, I hope that people realize there are intentional things in this speech.
Barbara.
I'm
No.
sorry, I just don't want people to expect a DTM speech.
Barbara.
I'm
Please-
sorry, I just
please-
ruined the whole thing.
Yeah,
All right.
please give your speech, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you need me to time it for you too?
It's up to you. I think
Okay.
it will be well within the
Okay, 5
time
to
frame.
7.
5 to 7. Yes.
Okay.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. The first speech in level 2 of persuasive influence requires the participant to evaluate their communication style. Now, to do this, the participant has to answer many questions, and I mean many. And then it's scored by, I guess we would consider it AI, to determine your communication style. I bet some of us in our careers have already had to do these things and have been surprised, perhaps, on what you've been told by a superior or the leader of the workshop. Now, there are 4 categories that are ranked in this evaluation. I scored the highest in something called initiating, which really wasn't a surprise to me. Now, characteristics of a person with this style are sociable, enthusiastic, energetic, spontaneous, and fun-loving. I think I could have written this description for myself. I've always loved being the social butterfly at events. In meetings, I try to encourage all participants to express their opinions on a question whenever possible. If I see someone who hasn't spoken for an entire hour, if the meeting is several hours, and I've been in those, I try to ask that person for their opinion if I've asked a question. A coworker of mine used to say, "You really know how Barbara feels about something." I was always one to speak my opinion when asked and sometimes when not asked. And I didn't mince words. I'm always anxious to express my opinions, but sometimes it's hard for me to keep my thoughts to myself. And this is not really a good thing, especially in business. I remember very early in my career, I was almost put on probation for something I said. It wasn't a bad thing, but I had to learn when and where to share certain stories. I never gave up any company secrets, in case you were wondering. Now, sometimes my face will tell a story without communicating any words. This is something I've also had to learn very hard over the years to get rid of, because again, my coworker said, "You always know how Barbara feels, even if I'm not saying anything." I believe the 2, words and facial expressions, do go hand in hand. Now, another characteristic of the initiating communicator is that he or she likes praise. I enjoy receiving it. Who doesn't? Even if it's only, to use Rhonda's worst, most hated word, great job, Barbara, from my personal trainer, or if someone tells me I did a good job after completing a project. Who doesn't like praise? I try to be positive when dealing with others, even if they didn't do such a fabulous job. Give a little bit of encouragement. Have you smiled at someone today? I think a smile can go very far in helping others feel comfortable. Even if you don't verbally communicate in a group, smiles, nodding a head, or some other kind of facial expression without speaking can give that person feedback in a nonverbal way. And I try to do that as I'm listening to anybody's speech. Another characteristic of the initiating communicator is impulsiveness. Another one I could have written for myself. I don't know if it's because I'm older and I'm just not patient, but sometimes I can't wait to get out something that's in my head and has to come out of my mouth. I accidentally will interrupt people and I'll stop speaking because I realize what I've done. I don't do it on purpose, of course, but I'm afraid that I'll forget my thought. I have learned to use a pencil and paper more. One of my mentors in this group, Miss Rhonda, is a voracious note taker, and I've been trying to do that along the way. I almost tied with another category called direct. There's no surprise here either. This person is decisive, independent, competitive, and confident. I could argue a little bit about the confident part because I put on a great show and people think I'm confident when I'm not always. How many times did I use the word of the day today? Displays my competitive spirit. I like to get to the point in meetings rather than dragging things out with a lot of discussion. It's great to hear the opinions of others, but my patience or lack thereof can get the best of me at times. Make a decision, everyone. Sometimes in a meeting, silence is deafening, and I will purposely call on someone again to get things moving. Just for your information, the two other categories in this test were analytical and supportive. Surprising that a scientist like myself didn't score high on analytical. Now, why do I want you to play poker with me? You might have been wondering that the entire time of this speech. Well, you'll win, no doubt. My face or my words will let you know how my hand is, and I will be able to praise you for doing so well. So let's keep the bets low, my friends, so I don't lose my shirt. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you so much. So I know usually we would have like table topics and we would have a time for people to collect their thoughts, but since we're working in real time and we're not fully evaluating our evaluators, does anyone want to share an evaluation of Barbara, even if it's not as perfected as you would normally do because you would have that little bit of time? Anyone? Dolores? Do I see your hand going up? You're on mute if you're talking.
Thank you. I am really trying to learn how to give better evaluations, so I will practice something here, and please give me feedback on my evaluation. I won't do a full 2 or 3 minute evaluation, but one of the things I noticed was it appeared that the speech was being read. And I would encourage striving for a more natural delivery and perhaps practice moving away from a rote recitation to more personalize your speech.
Awesome. Dolores, I absolutely loved how you phrased that, moving toward a more natural delivery and moving from recitation. I love that. Anyone else? Lisa,
Yes, I'll go.
please.
Barbara, what a wonderful speech. I loved your speech. I love learning about you and your experience and your work experience and your communication style. Your speech was very well organized. You told in talking about your different organizational styles. I like the way you express vulnerability in that you used humor as well. And you were able to let us know that basically that you weren't perfect and you recognize areas where you were either surprised that you had scored in the when you were told what your communication styles were, but places where you realized you could do better. And I thought that was good because you put a real human touch to your speech. I believe that any speech that where you're able to be vulnerable is powerful, and also where you're able to use humor is powerful too. If I could give you some suggestion, I would suggest that you use more vocal variety. You did have some I liked when you went up in the screen and said, Miss Rhonda, she says she doesn't like great job. That was like a use of humor, but it also was put a little bit more into the speech. Suggesting not to be as monotone. I forgot to mention, I did love your word choices. Overall, you did a wonderful job.
Thank you, Lisa. I think my voice is going. Okay, I talk. Anyone else? Paula, Joyce, Evelyn, Davida. Come on, long time Toastmasters.
You're going to force me
Give it
to
a shot.
evaluate myself.
Hey,
Don't be scared.
I could go. Okay.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
I'll give it a try here. All right. Barbara, I liked your presentation. Your organization was good. You're going through the 4 categories of communication styles that you had found in your survey. That was helpful. And you added additional comments after each one. You personalized the traits, the communication styles, and your relationship with each one. You did focus more on the first 2, so you sort of ran out of time a little bit for the analytical and supportive. But that may have been because you felt more affinity for the first 2 categories, initiative and being direct. I loved when you used the word voracious. Talking about Rhonda being a voracious note taker. Your word choices were very effective. I like that at the very end, you brought in your title, Poker Face, play poker with me, and saying you didn't have a poker face. I might suggest that you use your title in your opening a little bit better, a little more as well. all in all, I enjoyed your presentation. I do agree with suggestions about increasing vocal variety and being able to, getting away from notes frees a person to be more expressive. And I know you are a very expressive person. So I look forward to your next presentation.
You, Joyce. Anyone else?
I'll go. Thank you.
Please.
Barbara, the purpose of your speech was understanding your communication style. I like the way you address the different styles of communication and how you identify the styles which related to you, and also point out the two other, the analytical, and I'm sorry, I don't quite remember the other one, analytical and supportive one that you somehow did not connect with. I also felt that your opening, play poker with me, I anticipated some cards coming out, maybe to give me a type of visual of where you were going, because I was getting ready to pull out some dollar bills. I'm ready to learn something about poker. Also, I did notice how you appeared to be reading in the beginning, and it was a distraction from your speech coming in. Also, I think you tried to incorporate a great deal of humor, but sometimes your facial expressions did not line up at the right moment. And to summarize it all, I think your speech had structure with a great flow. And in closing, I would like to say I did enjoy your speech, and one of the two things that I would probably recommend again is knowing the opening of your speech and have a stronger closing.
Thank you, Sharita. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Does anyone have any other feedback for Barb? I'll try to spare you all my voice, so I'll just mention, Barbara, I always love hearing you speak. And I say this as a friend and a club member of yours. You always present information in a very logical, methodical manner that's easy to follow along with. I love the title of the speech, and I agree with Joyce that I wish it had come some reference to it somewhere earlier versus just at the end of the presentation. I love that you took your time to explain each characteristic of the communication style. That certainly was all inclusive and all encompassing, where I want to believe, if I could speak for the audience members, that each of us could find an attribute or a characteristic that we related to, that maybe we also embody as our part of our communication style. So that drew me in and made me want to learn more and to listen in. I thought that you could make better use of your introducer, whether it's the Toastmaster of the day, and MC, etc., by giving them a little bit of the framework about the project description and maybe the methodology. Don't use your precious speaking time to set the scene. Let your Toastmaster of the day or whomever's introducing you set the scene for you. I love your word choice, as was mentioned: impulsiveness, voracious. These are great words, and I say that, but I'm trying not to step on the grammarian, so we have to be mindful that the grammarian's role is to point out some of those things. But as the evaluator, if it added speech value, I think it's okay as well. I did not quite capture the closing of your speech. Oh, you said play poker with me because you don't have a poker face. That's pretty cool, pretty neat, a good callback to the speech title, which I thought was good. But maybe you could also recommend that we all learn our communication style so that we can be as effective as we can be, whether it's one-on-one, one to some, or one to many. So it covers the gamut of audience sizes. Outstanding job, and I look forward to hearing your next speech. So everyone, that really concludes the prepared material for today's finale. I do want to just have an open discussion if there's any points that we should elaborate on a little bit more, any questions that arose, any comments, any suggestions for modifying the session. Sharita, keep me honest. I believe you may want to recommend this session happens again, maybe later in the year.
Yes, we're looking to probably, club is looking to probably put together some other workshops in the near future. Evaluations might be one of them. We're going to also send out surveys to all the participants to get some feedback as well.
Okay, thank you. And if you all have any comments on the content that I pulled together, I'm so willing to modify this as you all see necessary. If there were things that were unnecessary, where you spent too much time, or if there are some other things that you think should be more emphasized, I can modify it per your suggestions to make it more impactful for the next cohort if this is done again.
I want to be mindful of time, but I would like to comment. Again, I'm new, so I've been kind of focusing in my evaluations on content or delivery. And you really opened my eyes today, Rhonda, when I can more focus on the purpose of the speech.
Yes.
And that will help me actually look at the content and the delivery too, but I can focus on that thing. And then my question, which will probably take too long.
Well, Dolores, we actually accounted for 90 minutes for this session.
Okay.
So really.
How
what's
can
up? I'm sorry,
evaluate-
is it 90 minutes is up, right? Okay, well, go ahead. Go ahead. If anyone needs to
I
jump
thought
in.
the session went until 8:30.
I don't.
Can everyone hold on a second? There's a lot of interruption going on.
Go ahead. I think Dolores was asking the question. I'm sorry, I didn't realize we were at time.
Yeah,
But,
we are.
Dolores, I don't know if everybody heard Dolores finish her question.
Yeah, I didn't hear it.
So how does everybody evaluate people so quickly?
Well, I think
Practice?
yes, practice. And as Barbara mentioned, I'm just an avid note taker. I take notes on everyone, whether I'm an evaluator or not. So I always scribe notes. So just keep, write your notes however you can do it best. And again, that period of time between, usually it's table topics between the speakers and evaluators. So that time you're usually fine tuning the organization of your evaluation and how you will present it. But if you use one of the methods or the approaches that we talked about, you can come with see, hear, feel, and you just write it in as you experience it. So that kind of self-organizes, or the sandwich method, right? The positive, constructive in the middle. So just write things in there as they happen, as you may want to share it with the speaker so that you already have it organized. And it doesn't have to be chronological. You don't have to say, and then you said, and then you did. And you can bundle things, like the things that the person did well, just bundle those together in logical groupings. Does anyone have any other suggestion for Dolores?
I do. It's important that the speaker give you the evaluation form so that you can look at it and be prepared before he even or she gives the speech. So you know, it's most of the projects, the evaluation form is the same, which is one of my objections to Pathways.
Yes.
However, some of the upper level speeches, there are different things to look for. Just be aware that you're looking for things they did well, things they could improve on, and things to challenge themselves in most of the speeches. If you keep that in mind, it's easier to make your notes as they're speaking.
Mhm.
I have a question about that. What is the difference between things you can improve on,
Ugh.
things that
Ugh.
to challenge yourself?
Ah,
Lisa, the way I look at it, the challenge yourself is that stretch goal, right? It may be lofty, it may be something that's not on that person's radar, it may be an advanced skill that you know they can do, right? Like no notes, right? Give yourself enough time to, as I say, digest and internalize your speech without memorizing it and be able to give it very organically.
I
But
understand that, but what I'm asking is what you're gonna put that in things you can improve on. The things that you do to challenge yourself, is that supposed to be different? I'm
yeah,
thinking it should be something different than what you
it's a
can
stretch
improve on.
goal. It's a stretch, like, the things that you may want to do, it could be easy things, low hanging fruit within their reach. But the challenge is just that it's something to aspire to, right? So those advanced techniques, call and response, um, moving about the stage, whatever you think for that person may be a stretch goal, that would be the challenge.
For
And
this
is it one-
presentation, maybe a challenge would be including a couple PowerPoint slides in the future when you have something where you have 4 different organizational points, have a slide that goes up. So having a visual aid
Mhm.
might be a challenge for the next time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Is
Thank
it
you.
also important to meet with the speaker, have some type of communication with them? So this way you will have something to look for in terms of providing them the feedback. Because usually if someone's giving a speech, they may be wanting to improve in a certain area. No matter how advanced a speaker might be, they might just need someone to point certain things out to them.
Yes. Agreed, Sharita. Yeah. Any other comments before we close? Wow, time flies when you're having fun. I totally missed the mark that it was already 90 minutes up. So thank you all so very much. This was a great way to spend my day. I hope you got something out of this, and I look forward to hearing your outstanding, phenomenal, amazing evaluations.
Yes.
feel better, Rhonda.
Thank
And
you so much. Thanks.
yes, and
Thanks
with the next,
for being our model speaker.
yes.
I appreciate that.
Yes,
All right,
and once
thank
again, I want to thank everyone, and also just a reminder, in the next couple of days, you should be receiving an email from me with the questionnaires, and please do fill out the email to provide us with that feedback, because Vicky is looking forward to giving the next workshop within the next month or so. Please do keep that in mind. And I do thank each and every one of you for coming out and supporting our club's workshop session to kick off this year. So thank each and every one of you. And thank you, Rhonda, for doing an amazing job
Yeah.
as our presenter for this year workshop. And we look forward to having you participate in upcoming ones as well. Thank
That
you.
was good.
Great
Thank
job,
you.
Rhonda.
Thanks,
Lisa,
Lisa.
is there anything you need to
Thank
say?
You did a phenomenal job, Rhonda.
And thank you,
Thank you.
Barbara, also as
My
well.
pleasure.
Barbara, again, thank you.
Thanks, Barb.
Yes, great job, Barb. Oh,
And
she jumped off. And that's my challenge. I need to come up with better adjectives than
I'm
great.
going to send you that list of,
Yes, please
from
send that
George.
to me because I
I will.
need that for sure.
I will. Thank you all.
All right, excellent
Good night.
presentation. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you, Sharita.
And